of Dr. Martin Luther King entitled "Mine Eyes Have Seen the Glory." This is part 2 of a 3-part series. If you're looking for the previous series part, you can just scroll down or I can resend it. But I wanted to just welcome you into this space. I've had the pleasure of performing, if you will, a monologue of Dr. King for now more than 20 years. So I want to share my writing, my creative imagination of what would Dr. King have to say today. Enjoy. Good evening. I ask that you join me in a moment of silence to reflect on the lives of those who are no longer with us. In our silence, let us remember the men and women who stood in harm's way, knowing at best that their lives would be at stake. And let us not forget the common man who feels he has nothing to contribute to the wealth of this country, but everything to lose in self-worth and dignity. A moment of silence. Thank you. When I rest my eyes at night, I imagine a world of peace and justice. But I'm reminded of a world of injustice and inequality. As I reflect on the success of the movement, I am reminded daily that the movement is not over. I can still hear the words, "We shall overcome and we shall not be moved." Little did we know that during the civil rights movement that our long suffering would draw a line in the sand of hate. Little did we know that every malicious blow, every segregated sign, every barricade would someday lead a divided nation across the finish line of justice. And little did we know that God would send us to harvest in a land polluted with greed, a land conflicted between peace and war, good and evil, a land disproportionately populated with homelessness and hopelessness. A land where one man's reason to love is the same reason to hate. We didn't know how much of an impact we would make on America. Unfortunately, this prognosis provides a sense of direction that points south on the moral compass of character. Despite the glittering sunlight of hope, the echo of hate and stench of bigotry cloud our expression of love. In many respects, hate has refilled its cup. Now it's time for us to wash the inside of the cup of bigotry. We can no longer neglect to meet the basic needs of human life in order to resuscitate and replenish the well-to-do. We can no longer walk ignorantly knowing inequality has presented itself as fair and balanced. And under no circumstance must we attempt to digest fear and helplessness because they are nothing more than appetizers of social dominance. I was in Pennsylvania some years back, and a woman joined me in the elevator and said to me, "I am who I am because you are who you are." She goes on to say, "My progress depends on your progress. My health depends on your health." That resonated with me. I thought to myself, this is true. America's no greater than the America it serves. When I look out my window, I see poverty and despair stepping over hunger and homeless, and liars and cheaters joining hands with bribers and robbers. My conscience can't rest knowing evil has extended immorality's contract. In 1963, standing before thousands in front of one of the most prominent historical figures to ever lead this nation, I stated, I have a dream. A dream that shattered, that dream that searched the ceiling of darkness to find light. A dream that challenged protesters to not close their eyes upon impact, yet instill a dream filled with hope, a dream marinated in love, a dream that has been different day after day. I don't know about you, but I still have a dream. When I was your age or a little younger, the vision for a healthy America was blurred by the temperament of fear. As the nation grew stronger in hate, our forward progress seized every method and strategy used to promote equality and justice was met with brute force. For years, our nation exchanged vows with organized crime and corruption. It is time for our nation to mature. We must march on. We cannot allow our steps forward to descend in the quicksand of satisfaction and content. One writer said, "The boy must die for the man to live." The civil rights adolescent years are over. Sir Isaac Newton made it plain. If I have seen further, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. If we climb the backs of foot soldiers who marched before us, it shouldn't matter how we got here. What matters now is why are we here. Today, the most effective change must occur in the lives of those whose voices are not heard, whose lifestyle are parallel to the ground, whose faith and beliefs have been deliberately bewildered, and whose inferiority has become the pathway to existence. There is no time to lie down. A slumbering nation lacks progress, but a vigilant nation looks to the hills for justice and peace. Peace will not come out of the fisticuffs. It's time to turn the searchlight inward and examine our moral conscience. The world cannot inflict violence on the self and expect not to live in violence. A mighty and powerful nation does not come from brute force, but an unconquerable will of character. Before America embraces its beauty and goodness, it must first define its purpose, and purpose lies in truth. We cannot live in a nation that has politics without principle, worship without obedience, business without morality, knowledge without character, and pleasure without a conscience. New century leadership calls for the resignation of segregationalists and the removal of heartless intellectuals. New century leadership calls for the dethroning of presumptuous policymakers. And new century leadership understands that when wisdom enters the heart and knowledge is pleasant to the soul, discretion will preserve you and understanding will keep you. America needs new century leadership. It won't be long now. We are standing on the shadow of victory. Each day must lean closer to justice. We cannot allow the sun to set in the west before our brothers experience love. Together, we trample over the grapes of divisibility. Together, we sound the trumpet of peace. So I say to you today, my friends, as we gather in our communities, we must not lose yards we've gained. My good friend Ralph Abernathy informed me that progress is often on the other side of despair. Don't let your spirit fatigue. Despair is not an end. Despair is not a period. It's a comma. Someday we will not be judged by our misery. We will not be judged by our wretchedness. We will be judged by the height of our character, the outreach of our integrity, in the depth of our charity as we prepare our hearts and minds for what lies ahead. Everything we need is in your home. Courage is in your home. Persistency is in your home. Strength is in your home. Love is in your home. It is this generation that must come to realize that inequality is not new. Injustice is not new. Discrimination is not new. Prejudice is not new. These are both broken branches from the tree of hate that continue to fall on green pastures. Your love for one another is the greatest demonstration of peace ever witnessed in American history. It is my hope that you will hear America's second cry. If you listen closely, you can still hear the cries of oppression, the cry of homelessness, the cry of child neglect, the cry of immigration, the cry for intellectual freedom, the cry to end poverty, the cry to stop violence and drug and human trafficking. These are the voices that scream in darkness. As I close, I'm reminded of a conversation that I had with the Lord several years ago. I was sitting in my study perplexed by the idle progress of the nation. As tears made way down my face, I felt the urgency to pray. Lord, I come to you in my darkest and weakest moment. I've tried to do what is right. I am tired now, and change remains in a balance. If you can spare my life a little longer, I would love to see the new century. Lord, how we got here is no longer important. I understand why we are here. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as my door closes, please know that no man, no transgression or wrath will stop you now. You're standing at the foothills of the promised land. I'm not worried about yesterday. Evil is piled high, but God sits at the mountaintop. Nothing would be more tragic than to stop now. One day in the valleys of Ohio, one day in the deserts of Arizona, one day along the coast of California, and one day in the flat plains of Iowa, we'll join hands. Black men and white men, Jew and Gentile, Protestant and Catholic, Native and Hispanic, walk to the top of the mountain, having conquered hate, having conquered evil, having conquered wickedness, discrimination no more, child abuse no more, suffering no more. We'll wipe the tears of heartache and weep no more. The trumpet will sound and we'll share, and we shall never call retreat. Hate has to die to set America free. When I was a young boy, I was told we are not a nation of perfection, but a nation being perfected. Today, we're being called out of darkness and into light. Our vision is much clearer now as we ascend from the valley of lost hope. God has not sent me to the mountaintop alone. Spirit and truth has been with me always. The psalmist said it this way: the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for God is with me always. I don't worry about sticks and stones, because his rod and staff comfort me. I may not get there with you, but I've been to the promised land. Mine eyes have seen the glory. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, this concludes this evening's monologue. I want to thank you for joining me. Please feel free to share this message with others. As our country continues to experience racism, hate, discrimination, racial profiling, as our leaders come together with their own agenda, their own politics, personal and bipartisan, we have to have a message of love and of hope. What would Dr. King have to say today? My message to you today: mine eyes have seen the glory. I look forward to sharing with you in the upcoming weeks, part 3 of this series, The View from the Mountaintop. If you want a copy of this speech, the first one as well as The View from the Mountaintop, you can purchase the book on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or reach out to me personally. I have copies here. I want you to dig into the words that I've shared with you tonight and make them personal, as a personal charge for yourself. To take the responsibility of addressing racism and discrimination in your own home, at your job, and in your community. It will make a difference. Again, this is a 3-part series. Part 3 will be in the next few weeks, The View from the Mountaintop. I thank you for your time this evening. Take care. God bless you.